It's easy to feel overwhelmed, lost, or even hopeless. And we try to escape the chaos, but no matter where we turn, suffering always finds us. But let me ask you something. What if suffering wasn't meant to break us, but to lead us to something greater? Now, there's a martial art that's called Aikido, which focuses on using the momentum of the attack against you and turning that same momentum around to counter the attack. Isn't that just genius? You know that Aikido in Japanese means the way of peace. So what if we could use suffering like that and turn it into a superpower? So for that, let's take a look at Padre Pio's secrets about suffering. Now, Padre Pio faced a battle that raged through both his body and his soul. He bore wounds that no doctor could explain. Yet, instead of breaking under the weight of that suffering, he discovered a peace so profound that even in his darkest moments, he was the saint who told us, "Pray, hope, and don't worry." Now, in August of 1918, while he was hearing confessions, Padre Pio was struck by an unbearable pain. It was like a blade of fire piercing his heart. And he was suddenly struck with wounds in his palms, his feet, side, and shoulder, the exact same wounds that our Lord bore during his passion. Now, in his humility, Padre Pio didn't see these wounds as something to boast about, but rather as a heavy cross to bear. He did everything to try to keep them hidden. He feared drawing attention to himself because he longed to direct souls to Christ and not to call attention to himself. Yet, beyond the physical pain and public scrutiny, there was a deeper struggle, a spiritual battle. For years, religious authorities were skeptical, questioning whether these wounds were truly from God or just the result of, say, self-mutilation, a mental illness, or even the work of the devil himself. Even after several medical examinations, his wounds remained a mystery, leading many to question their origin, the origin of those wounds. Padre Pio himself was ashamed of them. Now, isn't the stigmata supposed to be a blessing, a sign of holiness? Well, not always. There are cases of stigmata that were the result of autosuggestion, a psychological phenomenon where the person self-induced the wounds because of some mental suggestion. And thankfully, the church has its methods to find out which ones are true and which ones aren't. Now you may be thinking, what are these methods? And can I apply them to my own life to find out whether it's the devil or God performing signs and causing me suffering? In a world full of distractions and noises, it's not always easy to recognize the signs. But there is one key difference. If it is from God, it brings peace and clarity, even amid all kinds of challenges and difficulties. The devil, on the other hand, thrives on confusion, fear, and agitation. So, if you find yourself unsettled, torn, overwhelmed, it may well be a sign for you to pause and seek God's guidance. As we see in the Bible, it says, God is not found in agitation. Padre Pio was certain about this principle. He understood that where the devil is acting, there's unrest, but where God is, there is peace and calm. Despite the physical pain and spiritual battles that he endured, Padre Pio remained at peace all the time. For 50 years, he bore the wounds of Christ, the stigmata. Can you imagine that? And he would lose nearly half a pint of blood every day. something unheard of. He had endured physical agony, spiritual battles, and relentless attacks, both from the devil and, unfortunately, from those who doubted him. Unable to close his hands because of the pain, he wore these special gloves, except when he was celebrating Mass. And despite all of this, Padre Pio radiated peace. But you might ask, how? Instead of becoming bitter, he became stronger. Instead of turning inwards, he turned outwards, healing the sick and spending hours and hours in the confessional. And one important thing is that Padre Pio always carried a rosary and prayed it constantly. He didn't try to escape the suffering by avoiding it or running from it. Instead, he accepted it, offering it up and uniting himself to our Lord on the cross. He understood that suffering was not an obstacle to holiness, but a bridge leading straight to the heart of God. Just the fact that he was generous with his time and efforts for the benefit of others was already a sign that his stigmata was from God. So what if some suffering that comes upon me causes me distress and agitation? Does that mean that the suffering comes from the devil? Does that mean I should escape from this apparently devilish suffering? Absolutely not. It means we must calm down and accept the suffering, because the devil wants us to escape from suffering. And when we realize that we are agitated because we are thinking of ourselves, trust in God's goodness and you will find peace. Offer it up for the conversion of sinners, or even for the person who is the one that's causing that suffering for you, if it was caused by someone. And in this way, suffering will become easier to bear. But what if peace isn't about escaping the chaos? What if peace is about finding God right in the middle of it? Padre Pio shows us how. He teaches us that peace isn't the absence of suffering, it's the presence of Christ. Everything changes when we shift our focus from our problems to God's purpose. So, what's weighing you down? Is it anxiety, fear, the uncertainty about the future? So just take a deep breath. Give it to God. Offer it up. Pray, hope, and don't worry. Because true peace isn't found in a perfect life. It's found in trust, and therefore in trusting ourselves to God in self-abandonment for the sake of heaven. And slowly we will realize that if it were not for suffering, we would not have a chance to entrust ourselves to God. It's through suffering, not in spite of it, that we are drawn closer to Christ. As Padre Pio once said, when we suffer, Jesus is closer to us. These words are a powerful reminder that our suffering does not separate us from God. In fact, it draws us nearer to Him. In the midst of his most difficult trials, Padre Pio always turned to Mary for support. His love for her was unconditional and constant. She was his refuge, his guide, and his faithful companion through every moment of suffering. Just as Padre Pio turned to Mary in every trial, we too can turn to her in our own challenges, knowing she is there to help us navigate life's struggles. If you're seeking peace and strength, consider making your consecration to Jesus through Mary. Make this powerful commitment today and experience the love, peace, and protection that Mary, our Mother, offers us on our journey towards Christ. So for that, I will leave a link in the description below for this free consecration using the method of St. Louis de Montfort. Padre Pio understood the importance of Our Lady in the life of every Christian and the power of the Holy Rosary as an essential tool in our faith journey. No matter how hard life became, he found peace in praying to Mary, knowing that she would always give him the courage to keep on going. And for those who may still be wondering, why the Rosary? Now, the Rosary, when prayed with faith and devotion, it can move mountains. It is said that the gates of hell tremble when the Rosary is prayed fervently. So, when doubts and uncertainties arise, be like St. Pio and reach for your Rosary. He once said something very important. He said this: some people are so foolish that they think that they can go through life without the help of the Blessed Mother. Love Our Lady and pray the Rosary, for her Rosary is a weapon against the evils of the world today. All grace is given by God through our Blessed Mother. Now, wonderful words of St. Pio. So in fact, Padre Pio's devotion to the Rosary was so strong that some might have thought it was exaggerated and crazy. And that's why I'm going to make another video dedicated to St. Pio's exaggerated devotion to Mary, which will also give you reasons to, ramp up your devotion to our Blessed Mother and to the Rosary. Because in the words of the great St. Bernard, he said, "Of Mary we can never say enough." So, hope to see you in the next video. And don't forget to bring your Rosary. God bless and Salve Maria.